Have you ever tried to grow something and the soil simply refused to cooperate? What if I told you that the secret to powerful, fertile soil is older than modern agriculture itself? Most people think gardening fails because of seeds, weather, or bad luck. But the real problem is much deeper. Literally, the soil beneath our feet is often lifeless, empty, exhausted, and we try to force plants to grow in something that has no life left to give. In this video, you'll learn how to create living soil from scratch, using an ancient method so simple, it feels almost too easy. A method so strategic that it transforms waste into fertility. By the end, you won't just understand soil. You'll understand how to build it layer by layer, like medieval farmers did, without chemicals and without complicated formulas. If you enjoy learning practical strategies that make you more independent and more efficient in your garden, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, have you ever struggled with poor soil? Now let's begin with the real problem. When most people look at soil, they see dirt, brown, dry, ordinary. But soil is not dirt, or at least it shouldn't be. Healthy soil is alive, it breathes, it holds water, it feeds roots. It breaks down organic matter and transforms it into nutrients. Dead soil does none of that. It's compacted. It drains poorly or not at all. It doesn't retain nutrients, and it forces you to depend on fertilizers just to keep plants alive. Here's the strategic truth most beginner gardeners don't realize. You don't grow plants, you grow soil, and soil grows plants. In medieval times, people didn't have synthetic fertilizers. They didn't have garden centers filled with miracle products. What they had was observation. They noticed that forests never needed fertilizing. Leaves fell, layers formed. Time passed, and the ground became dark, rich, and fertile. That observation became strategy. Instead of digging endlessly and disturbing the ground, they began layering organic materials on top of the soil. Green materials, brown materials, kitchen scraps, straw, leaves, manure, each layer serving a purpose, each layer feeding the one below it. Over time, those layers compressed and transformed into rich, dark, living soil. Think about it like building a lasagna. You don't throw all ingredients into a bowl and hope for the best. You layer them. Pasta, sauce, cheese. Repeat. Structure creates outcome. The same logic applies to soil. Modern gardening often skips this foundation. People buy bags of soil and assume it's ready, but bagged soil is often sterile, stripped of life to prevent pests. It looks good, it feels clean, but it lacks complexity. And complexity is where resilience lives. When your soil lacks structure, your garden becomes fragile. It depends on constant watering, constant feeding, constant correction. That's not productivity, that's maintenance. True productivity comes from systems that sustain themselves. Dead soil demands effort. Living soil reduces effort. And here's the empowering part. You can build living soil anywhere, even on top of poor ground, even on compacted clay, even in a small backyard. You don't need to remove everything. You don't need to dig deep trenches. You need layers, strategy, patience. But to build it correctly, you must understand what each layer actually does. Because this medieval lasagna is not random stacking. It is controlled decomposition. It is guided transformation. It is a slow, invisible engine working beneath your plants. And in the next part, you'll understand exactly how this transformation happens and why green and brown layers are the secret code behind it. If the first secret of powerful soil is understanding that soil must be alive, the second secret is understanding how life is built. And this is where most gardeners either overcomplicate everything or give up too soon. The medieval lasagna method works because it follows a simple natural law. Everything that lives eventually decomposes, and everything that decomposes feeds new life. But decomposition is not chaos, it is organized transformation. Imagine a forest floor. Leaves fall in autumn. Small branches drop during storms. Plants die back in winter. Nothing is removed. Nothing is cleaned up. Over time, those materials form layers. The top layer is fresh and visible. The bottom layer is dark, rich, and already transformed. Between those two layers, something invisible is happening. Moisture, air, microorganisms, insects, worms, all working together like a silent workforce. Now, bring that image into your garden. The reason layering works is because different materials serve different functions. And instead of mixing everything randomly, we stack them in a way that mimics nature, but in a more controlled and strategic way. There are two main types of materials in this system. Think of them as fuel and structure. The first type is green material. This includes kitchen scraps, fresh grass clippings, coffee grounds, plant trimmings. These materials are rich in energy. They break down quickly. They are like the sauce in a lasagna, moist, active, full of nutrients. The second type is brown material. Dry leaves, straw, shredded cardboard, small twigs. These materials break down more slowly. They create air pockets, they prevent compaction. They are like the pasta sheets, giving structure and balance. If you use only green material, your pile becomes wet, heavy, and compacted. It can smell, it can suffocate. If you use only brown material, it becomes dry and slow, taking too long to transform. But when you alternate layers, brown, green, you create balance. Balance creates airflow. Airflow feeds microorganisms. Microorganisms break down material. Broken down material becomes humus. Humus becomes living soil. And here is the strategic insight. You are not feeding plants directly. You are feeding the life that feeds the plants. This is why the method is powerful. You are building a system, not applying a product. Over time, the lower layers begin to darken. They soften. They hold moisture like a sponge. Worms move in. Roots penetrate easily. Water doesn't run off. It sinks in and stays available longer. And suddenly you notice something surprising. You water less. You fertilize less. Plants grow stronger. Not because you force them, but because the environment supports them. This is productivity built from the ground up. The medieval farmers didn't use laboratory formulas. They observed cycles. They learned that waste is not waste. It is future fertility. And when you layer strategically, you speed up what nature already wants to do. But understanding the theory is one thing. The real power comes when you apply it correctly, without overthinking it, without making common mistakes, and without turning your garden into a messy pile. So in the next part, we'll break it down step by step. How to build your soil lasagna from scratch, what to put first, how thick each layer should be, and what most people get wrong in the beginning. Now that you understand why the layering method works, it's time to make it practical. Because strategy without execution is just theory, and soil is built with action. The first thing you need to understand is this: you do not need to dig everything up. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes beginners make is disturbing the soil too much. When you dig deeply, you break natural structures, expose hidden layers to harsh sunlight, and disrupt the life that may already exist there. The medieval lasagna method works by building on top, not by tearing everything apart. Step 1 is choosing your location. It can be directly on grass, compacted soil, or even a poor patch of ground that barely grows weeds. You don't need perfect conditions. You're about to create them. If there is tall grass, cut it short. Leave it there. It becomes part of the first layer. Do not remove it. Remember, waste is future fertility. The first official layer should be brown material. This base layer acts like a barrier and foundation. Cardboard works extremely well. Plain, uncoated cardboard. It blocks aggressive weeds, retains moisture, and slowly decomposes over time. On top of that, add a layer of dry leaves or straw. This creates airflow and prevents the bottom from becoming compacted. Think of this as the foundation of a house. If the foundation is weak, everything above it struggles. Next comes your first green layer: kitchen scraps, fresh grass clippings, plant trimmings. Spread them evenly. Do not pile them too thick. A thin, consistent layer is more effective than a heavy clump. Thick piles slow down decomposition and can create unpleasant odors. Then another brown layer. Dry leaves, shredded paper, straw. Cover the green completely. You should not see exposed food scraps. This prevents pests and balances moisture. Then green again, then brown again. Layer by layer, you are building height. Ideally, your total height should be between 30 to 60 centimeters. It may look bulky at first. That is normal. Over weeks and months, it will compress significantly. Now here is a common mistake: impatience. Many people expect instant results, but this is controlled transformation. Depending on climate and materials, it can take several weeks to several months for the lower layers to turn into rich soil. Water is essential. Each layer should be lightly moist, like a wrung-out sponge, not soaked, not dry. Moisture activates the decomposition process. Without it, everything slows down. Another mistake is overcomplicating ratios. You do not need laboratory precision. If it smells bad, add more brown material. If it looks too dry and inactive, add a bit more green and water lightly. Observe, adjust. That is the real strategy. Over time, you will notice changes. The pile sinks, the color darkens, the texture becomes soft and crumbly. Worms appear. When you dig gently into the lower section and see dark, earthy material that smells fresh, not rotten, you know it's working. At that point, you can plant directly into it. No tilling required, no heavy digging. Roots will naturally find their way through the decomposing layers into the enriched soil below. And this is where productivity begins to multiply. Because once you understand how to build one bed this way, you realize something bigger. You can transform any poor space into fertile ground, even small areas, even urban backyards. But there is one final piece most people overlook. A piece that determines whether your soil becomes merely good or truly powerful. In the next part, we will explore the hidden engine inside living soil, and why once you activate it, your garden begins to work with you instead of against you. At this point, you understand the structure, you understand the layers, you understand the practical steps, but there is something deeper happening beneath that stack of leaves and scraps. Something invisible, and this invisible force is what separates a simple compost pile from a truly powerful growing system. Living soil is not just decomposed material, it is an ecosystem. When you build your medieval lasagna correctly, you are not just creating nutrients, you are creating habitat, and habitat invites life. Tiny organisms begin to move in, microbes, fungi, worms, insects so small you will never see them. They are not random, they are workers. Each one has a role. Some break down tough fibers, some transport nutrients, some create microscopic tunnels that improve airflow and drainage. Some form partnerships with plant roots, extending their reach underground. And here is the strategic advantage most gardeners miss. When your soil becomes alive, it starts solving problems for you. Water retention improves dramatically. Instead of watering constantly, your soil begins to act like a sponge. It absorbs rain and irrigation, then slowly releases moisture back to the roots. Nutrient loss decreases. Instead of washing away with every rainfall, nutrients are held inside organic matter and released gradually. Roots grow deeper, stronger, more resilient. This means your plants become less dependent on external inputs. Less fertilizer, less correction, less stress. That is independence. But there is also productivity. Living soil regulates temperature better. During hot days, the layered organic matter protects roots from extreme heat. During cooler nights, it retains warmth longer. This stability reduces plant shock and accelerates growth cycles, and perhaps most importantly, healthy soil resists disease naturally. When beneficial organisms dominate, harmful organisms struggle to take over. It becomes a balanced environment rather than a battlefield. Think about that strategically. Instead of reacting to problems, pests, weak growth, poor yields, you prevent them at the foundation level. This is the difference between short-term gardening and long-term system building. Many people treat gardening like a seasonal hobby. They plant, they harvest, they reset. But when you focus on soil building, you are investing in something that improves year after year. The first season might be good, the second season is better. By the third season, your soil is darker, looser, richer. You need fewer corrections. Your plants respond faster. Your yields increase without increasing effort. This is compounded productivity, and it all starts with layers. The medieval farmers understood something powerful. Soil is not a static material. It is a living cycle. If you feed the cycle, it feeds you back. When you adopt this mindset, gardening shifts from labor to strategy. You stop fighting the land. You start collaborating with it. And once you experience that shift, it changes how you see waste, time, and patience. Because what looks like scraps today becomes abundance tomorrow. Now let's bring everything together. Most people try to fix plants. Few people build soil. The medieval lasagna method is not just about layering organic material. It is about understanding that real productivity starts below the surface. It is about creating systems instead of chasing quick fixes. You do not need expensive fertilizers. You do not need complicated formulas. You need structure, layers, patience, observation. When you build soil from scratch, you are building independence. You are turning waste into fertility. You are transforming poor ground into opportunity. And perhaps the most powerful image to keep in your mind is this. Every layer you place today is a future harvest in progress. Beneath your feet, an invisible engine begins working, quietly, steadily, strategically. If this perspective changed the way you see your garden, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, are you ready to build your soil from scratch? Because once you master the ground beneath you, everything above it begins to thrive.